Mr. Stephen Josh Nerly, who is the Honorary Consul of France, for the presentation of the Legion of Honor Medal.
Mr. Lizanich, your family and friends, all veterans present today, representatives of American Legion Post 572, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and privilege to be here today to pay tribute to Mr. George Lizanich, and by doing so to the soldiers who sacrificed their lives for France and Western Europe. Mr. Lizanich, 70 years ago, you gave your youth to France, and the French people do remember. As recently as June 6th of this year, the presidents of the United States and France, as well as many other heads of state, gathered in Normandy to remember those who paid the ultimate price to liberate France and Europe. Even after all these years, in cemeteries throughout France, fresh flowers are a common sight on the graves of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Flowers placed there by a grateful French people. Twice last century, in 1917 and 1944, American soldiers restored freedom to France. France and the French people will never forget what they owe America, a steadfast friend, partner, and ally. From Lafayette and Yorktown to the battlefields of World War I, to the beaches of Normandy, these two countries have always stood shoulder to shoulder to defend and promote the values of freedom and democracy that are the core of who we are. Mr. Lizanich, thanks to your courage, to France's American friends and allies, France has been living in peace for 7 decades, the longest period of continuous peace in modern French history. Mr. Lizanich entered military service in February 1944 when he was just 19 years old, and served in the 262nd Infantry Regiment of the 66th Infantry Division, also known as the Black Panther Division. From November 1944 until May 1946, he fought in many areas, in particular in the Saint-Nazaire and Lorient sectors in western France, 2 pockets of German resistance, as well as the Rhineland campaign. For his bravery and achievements, the American government presented Mr. Lizanich with prestigious awards. They include the Bronze Star, the Combat Infantry Badge, the Sharpshooter Badge with Rifle Bar, the Good Conduct Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, the European African Middle Eastern Theater Medal with 1 Bronze Star, and the Army of Occupation Medal with German clasp. Mr. Lizanich, to show its eternal gratitude, the government of the French Republic has decided to award you the Legion of Honor. Created by Napoleon in 1804, it is the highest honor that France can bestow upon those who have achieved remarkable deeds for France. The award of France's highest honor is most appropriate for someone who helped to liberate France's soil and the French people. And today, Mr. Lizanich, I am going to be pleased and honored to present you with the insignia today in front of your loved ones and friends. So if you can come forward, sir. Now, there's some special words I have to say, okay? Mr. Lizanich, au nom du Président de la République, je vous fais chevalier de la Légion d'honneur, which means, in the name of the President of the Republic, I make you a Knight of the Legion of Honor. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, while everybody is still standing, to honor George and our 2 great nations. Be seated. I'm glad I had him do his because you had half my speech, so you guys are lucky tonight. I want to once again thank Mr. Nerly. He had a long day today and a long drive to get here. I also want to thank the French consulate in Chicago. They have been very helpful, very kind,
and have shown concern for all of our WW2 veterans, especially to the press attaché. I can't say her first name, so Pascal Ferland. He's trying to help me with French, but I think it's impossible.
You can speak English with a little French.
I'll tell you what, George called me about 3 weeks ago that he'd received this medal. At first he didn't even tell me what the medal was. So I really wasn't quite sure what he was talking about, and I started doing research, and I looked and I said, ooh, this can't be it, wow. And then I called him back. He says, well, yeah, Knight, Legion, Order of the Legion of Honor. I go, oh, wow. This is an incredible medal, and thanks to France recognizing a lot of our WW2 guys. There have been ceremonies all over the country, some on the Capitol steps in North Carolina, even to the Department of France, the American Legion conducted ceremonies. And what I had here was that the French Legion of Honor is an order of distinction, first established by Napoleon Bonaparte, just as he said. There are several steps, the top one being of Grand Master, which is held by the sitting President of the Republic. Foreign nationals who have served France or the ideals it upholds may receive a distinction from the Legion of Honor. American recipients include General Dwight David Eisenhower and Douglas MacArthur, Admiral Michael Mullen, and even, as an institution, the United States Military Academy at West Point. Today there are approximately 93,000 Legion of Honor recipients. George, who is a member of our post and has been a member of the American Legion for 28 years, and like many of our members, he also belongs to the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Well, when I learned about this medal and I was starting to shake already, I called George back and he told me his story in great detail. These events took place 70 years ago. But as he was giving me what I needed, it sounded almost as if they just happened yesterday. This didn't surprise me. I talked to other combat veterans, and whether it be World War II, Korea, or Vietnam, these memories, both good and nightmarish, stay with these veterans the rest of their lives. He was a private first class, and as he told me, it was only because he was a BAR man. He's a little modest. I thought it was because he's so tall. The 3-foot regiments of the division arrived in England on November 26, 1944, and the remainder of the division on December 12th. And George did tell me that while he was in England, he did turn 19. The soldiers were told that on Christmas they would be having a great Christmas feast in England. Instead, because of the Battle of the Bulge, they would find themselves bound for Cherbourg, France, on board 2 Belgian steamships, the Cesare and the Leopoldville, which headed across the English Channel on Christmas Eve. Each of the transport ships carried about 2,500 men, and for whatever reason, men were haphazardly loaded on board. George found himself on the Cesare, while some of his buddies from the 262nd were on the Leopoldville. They were told that the crossing would be safe. While crossing the channel from Southampton to Cherbourg, they heard the explosions in the water and they rushed on the deck to see U.S. destroyers dropping depth charges. At 5:55 p.m., the Leopoldville was struck by a torpedo from a German U-boat on the starboard side, ripping a gaping hole below the waterline just 5 miles from the French coast. Several months later, the United States Navy announced that the Leopoldville sinking produced the second largest loss of life from a troop ship disaster in the entire European war. The toll, 14 officers, including 2 battalion commanders, and 784 enlisted men, dead or missing. At first sight, George had of Cherbourg as they left their ship on Christmas Day was of American bodies stacked like cordwood from the Leopoldville sinking. With the 66th Division now under strength, it was decided that they would relieve the 94th Infantry Division. On December 29th, they had anywhere from 60,000 to 100,000 German troops bottled up in the Brittany-Lorraine area. Its mission was to contain the enemy in the Saint-Nazaire and Lorient pockets, and was carried out by daily reconnaissance patrols, limited objective attacks, and the maintenance of harassing interdictory fires on enemy installations. A heavy German attack near Le Croix was repulsed on April 16, 1945, and several strongly placed enemy positions were taken from April 29th to the 29th, or April 19th to the 29th. Enemy troops in the Lorient and Saint-Nazaire pockets surrendered to the division upon the end of hostilities in Europe on May 8, 1945. The 66th moved to Germany on occupation duty in the Koblenz sub-area on May 20th and left for Marseille on May 26th in preparation for redeployment to the Pacific. During World War II, the point system was used, and those with a high number of points would be going home. Those, and George among them, with low points would be redeployed to the Pacific. With the dropping of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the war was finally over. The division sailed for home on October 27, 1945, and by November, the division was deactivated. By the time George left the Army, he attained the rank of Staff Sergeant and has since retired from Ford Motor Company. Congratulations, George, for this long-delayed recognition by the French government. Because of you and your comrades, France was freed from the darkness of evil occupation, and liberty was restored. Thank you, George. Now, I do have, this is bugging me ever since he told me about this. Do we have to call you Sir George now? I guess we do. Now at this point, the officers and members of Post 572, we have our own little presentation for you as a way of showing how we feel about you and to congratulate you on this high, very high honor that France has bestowed upon you. Now turn it over to Commander Lalo.
On behalf of the officers and the members of those who take school at Post 572. Oh, geez, we can't lose that.
I hope that's not a bad omen.
Oh, no, it's just as excited as we are.
That just means we got to go to war with France now.
We want to present you this plaque of your recognition here tonight.
Thank you very much. I sure appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks. You want some? George, you want some? Here, the mic is yours. Whatever you want to say.
Well, I do have something written down I want to say. I'll make sure that I find out. First of all, I want to thank the Legion, French Embassy for recognizing me. I want to think about the guys that were lost. It's a shame, but I can't control myself. I'm sorry, but I would like to acknowledge the guys that were lost in Christmas Eve, 1944. I'm sorry, I lost my composure.
It's okay.
But I want to thank my wife, my children, Dan, Frank, and Kathy, my grandson David, and also I want to thank the Post for recognizing me. And that's about it. Thank you very much. Thank you.